It was September 1998, and Larry Page was sitting in a conference room at Yahoo headquarters, sweating through his shirt. Next to him, Sergey Brin was fidgeting with a pen, trying not to look as desperate as they both felt. They had just pitched their search engine to Yahoo's executive team, offering to sell the entire company for $1 million. $1 million. That was it. That was the price tag they had put on years of work, countless sleepless nights, and what they believed was the future of the internet. The Yahoo executives looked at each other. Then one of them smiled. Not a warm smile. Not an encouraging smile. It was the kind of smile you give a kid who just told you they want to be an astronaut when they grow up. Polite, dismissive, almost pitying. They said no. They said Yahoo already had a search function, and it worked just fine. They did not need what Larry and Sergey were selling. They said good luck with your little project, and they showed them the door. Larry and Sergey walked out of that building in silence. They got into Larry's beat-up Honda and just sat there for a moment. They had been rejected before, but this one hurt different. This was not just another no. This was Yahoo, the biggest name on the internet, telling them their life's work was not worth $1 million. The drive back to their garage office in Menlo Park felt like the longest drive of their lives. They were running out of money. They were running out of time. And now they were running out of options. But what happened next would change everything. Not just for them, for the entire world. This is the story of how two broke Stanford students almost gave up. How they faced rejection after rejection. How everyone told them they were wasting their time. And how they built one of the most valuable companies in human history. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to 1996. Larry Page and Sergey Brin met at Stanford University in the summer of 1995. Larry was 22 years old, a computer science graduate student with big ideas and bigger ambitions. Sergey was 21, a math and computer science whiz from Maryland who had immigrated from Russia as a kid. They did not like each other at first. Larry thought Sergey was too argumentative. Sergey thought Larry was too opinionated, but they both loved solving impossible problems. And by 1996, they were working together on a research project that would consume their lives. The project was called Backrub. Yes, Backrub, that was the original name. It was a search engine that ranked websites based on how many other sites linked to them. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Instead of just counting keywords, Backrub looked at relationships between pages. It looked at which sites other people trusted and valued. It worked. It worked really well. By 1997, Backrub was getting attention around Stanford. Students started using it instead of the other search engines available at the time. Professors were impressed. But Larry and Sergey had a problem. Backrub was eating up too much bandwidth. It was slowing down Stanford's entire network. The university was not happy. Larry and Sergey needed to move their operation off campus, but that required money, real money. Money they did not have. So they did what every broke graduate student does when they need cash. They started looking for investors. In 1998, they officially renamed Backrub to Google. The name came from Google, a mathematical term for the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. It represented their mission to organize the massive, seemingly infinite amount of information on the web. They dropped out of Stanford. They moved their servers into a garage owned by Susan Wojcicki, who would later become the CEO of YouTube. They worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. They ate cheap ramen noodles and slept on air mattresses. They were betting everything on this idea, but they needed funding. They needed it desperately. They pitched to venture capitalists all over Silicon Valley. Most of them said no. Some said maybe. A few said they would think about it, but nobody was writing checks. The dot-com bubble was already showing cracks. Investors were getting nervous. Everyone wanted the next big thing, but nobody wanted to take the risk. That is when Larry and Sergey decided to approach Yahoo. If they could not get investors, maybe they could just sell the company, get some cash, pay off their debts, and move on with their lives. Maybe go back to Stanford and finish their degrees. Yahoo was the biggest internet company in the world in 1998. They were the portal everyone used. They had email, news, chat rooms, and yes, a search function. But their search was not great. It was slow, it was cluttered, and it often gave you results that had nothing to do with what you were looking for. Larry and Sergey thought Yahoo would jump at the chance to buy Google. They thought $1 million was a fair price, maybe even a bargain. They walked into that meeting with hope. They walked out with nothing. The rejection crushed them, not just emotionally, but practically. They were burning through what little money they had. Credit cards were maxed out. Rent was due. They were facing the very real possibility that they would have to shut down Google and admit defeat. Sergey called his parents and told them things were not going well. His father, a math professor, told him to come home, get a real job, stop chasing this dream that was eating him alive. Larry's family said the same thing. They meant well. They were worried. They did not want to see their sons destroy themselves over a website. But Larry and Sergey could not let it go. They looked at the data every single day. They saw people using Google. They saw the search results getting better. They saw something nobody else could see. They saw the future. And they refused to quit. In late 1998, something shifted. A man named Andy Bechtolsheim, one of the founders of Sun Microsystems, agreed to meet with them. They gave him a quick demo of Google in the parking lot of a building near Stanford. He watched them type in a search query. He watched the results load in less than a second. He saw how clean the interface was, how fast it worked, how relevant the results were. Andy reached into his pocket and pulled out his checkbook. He wrote them a check for $100,000 right there in the parking lot. He made it out to Google Inc., even though Google Inc. did not officially exist yet as a legal entity. Larry and Sergey had to scramble to set up the company just so they could cash the check. That $100,000 kept them alive. It bought them time. It bought them hope. Then, in 1999, they secured real venture capital funding. Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital, two of the biggest names in Silicon Valley, invested $25 million. Suddenly, Google had resources. They could hire engineers. They could buy better servers. They could scale. And scale they did. By the end of 1999, Google was handling over 3 million searches per day. By 2000, they were handling 18 million searches per day. The growth was explosive. The search engine was not just good, it was the best. It was faster, cleaner, and more accurate than anything else on the market. People started switching from Yahoo to Google. Then they started telling their friends. Then their friends told their friends. It was word of mouth on a massive scale. No big advertising campaign, no flashy commercials. Just a simple, white search page that did exactly what you wanted it to do. But here is the twist. Remember Yahoo, the company that rejected Google for $1 million in 1998? By 2000, Yahoo realized they had made a mistake. A huge mistake. They came back to Larry and Sergey. They wanted to buy Google now. They offered $3 billion. $3 billion. That is 3,000 times more than what they had offered to sell for just 2 years earlier. Larry and Sergey said no. Well, technically, they countered. They said they would sell for $5 billion. Yahoo thought that was too high. They walked away. Again, and that decision, that second rejection, would haunt Yahoo forever. Now, pause for a second and think about this moment. Imagine you are Larry or Sergey in 1998. You are broke. You are desperate. The biggest internet company in the world just told you your dream is not worth $1 million. Your family is telling you to give up. Your credit cards are maxed out. You are living in a garage. Would you have quit? Would you have walked away? Drop a comment below and tell me honestly, because most people would have. Most people would have said, this is too hard, this is too painful, this is not worth it. But Larry and Sergey did not. They kept going, and that choice changed everything. Let's talk about what happened after they turned down Yahoo's $3 billion offer in 2000. Google kept growing, but it was not just about size anymore. It was about innovation. It was about building something that had never existed before. Larry and Sergey were not content with just being a search engine. They wanted to organize all the world's information, all of it. In 2001, they brought in Eric Schmidt as CEO. Eric was a seasoned executive who had worked at Sun Microsystems and Novell. Larry and Sergey were brilliant engineers, but they needed someone who knew how to run a massive company. Eric provided that experience. He became the adult supervision that allowed Larry and Sergey to keep dreaming big while someone managed the day-to-day operations. Under Eric's leadership, Google started launching products that would become part of everyday life. In 2004, they launched Gmail, offering 1 gigabyte of free storage when other email services were offering just 2 or 4 megabytes. People thought it was an April Fool's joke. It was not. It was Google showing everyone what was possible. That same year, Google went public. The initial public offering on August 19, 2004, was unconventional. Instead of the traditional IPO structure, they used a Dutch auction to let the market set the price. The stock opened at $85 per share. The company was valued at $23 billion on day one. $23 billion? Yahoo could have owned all of that for $1 million in 1998. Let that sink in. But Google was just getting started. In 2005, they launched Google Maps, revolutionizing how people navigate. In 2006, they bought YouTube for $1.65 billion. Everyone said they overpaid. Everyone said YouTube was a money pit that would never be profitable. Everyone was wrong. Today, YouTube alone generates over $30 billion in annual revenue. In 2008, they launched Google Chrome, a web browser that would eventually dominate the market. In 2008, they also launched Android, an operating system for mobile phones. Today, Android runs on over 70% of all smartphones in the world. Every year brought new products. Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Photos, Google Assistant, each one pushing the boundaries of what technology could do. Each one making life a little bit easier for billions of people around the world. But it was not always smooth. Google faced massive challenges, antitrust investigations, privacy concerns, competition from Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. Failures like Google Plus and Google Glass. There were setbacks. There were mistakes. But through it all, the company kept innovating. In 2015, Google restructured and became Alphabet Inc. Google became a subsidiary of Alphabet, alongside other ventures like Waymo for self-driving cars, Verily for healthcare, and DeepMind for artificial intelligence. Larry became CEO of Alphabet. Sergey became president. It was a way to organize their expanding empire and give each division room to breathe and grow. The stock kept climbing. $10,000 invested in Google's IPO in 2004 would be worth over $300,000 by 2020. People who worked at Google in the early days and got stock options became millionaires. Some became billionaires. The company created wealth on a scale rarely seen in human history. But the real story is not just about money, it is about impact. Google changed how we find information. It changed how we communicate. It changed how we navigate. It changed how we learn. There is barely a corner of modern life that Google has not touched. By 2020, Alphabet's market value passed $1 trillion. It was one of only a handful of companies to ever reach that milestone. Larry and Sergey stepped down from their day-to-day roles, handing control to Sundar Pichai, who had been running Google since 2015, but their vision continued. Then came the AI revolution. In the early 2020s, artificial intelligence went from a niche technology to the defining technology of the era. Every company scrambled to integrate AI into their products. And Google, with its massive resources and years of research through DeepMind, was positioned perfectly. In 2023 and 2024, Google rolled out major AI features across all its products. AI-powered search, AI-generated summaries, AI assistants that could handle complex tasks. The company faced stiff competition from OpenAI, Microsoft, and others, but Google had something nobody else had: scale, infrastructure, billions of users, decades of data. And then, in January 2026, it happened. Alphabet's market capitalization hit $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That is $4 million. It is a number so large it is hard to comprehend. It made Alphabet one of the most valuable companies in human history, alongside Apple and Microsoft. $4 trillion. Yahoo could have bought all of that for $1 million in 1998. Think about that. A company that laughed at two desperate graduate students offering to sell their search engine for $1 million, watched as those same students built something worth 4 million times more. The executives who showed Larry and Sergey the door in 1998 had to watch as Google became the most dominant force on the internet. This is not just a business story. This is a story about belief, about persistence, about refusing to let other people define your worth. Larry and Sergey were told no by almost everyone. Investors said no. Yahoo said no. Experts said the search market was already saturated and there was no room for another player. Larry's and Sergey's own families told them to give up and get real jobs. But they did not listen. They kept working. They kept improving. They kept believing in something nobody else could see. And they proved everyone wrong, not in a small way, in the biggest way imaginable. Today, Larry Page is worth over $250 billion. Sergey Brin is worth over $230 billion. Together, their combined wealth exceeds $500 billion. But more than the money, they changed the world. They made information accessible to everyone. They created tools that billions of people use every single day. They proved that two kids with an idea and a garage can compete with the biggest companies on earth. So what is the lesson here? What can you take from this story? First, rejection does not mean you are wrong. It just means the person saying no does not see what you see. Yahoo rejected Google twice, and they were catastrophically wrong both times. If you believe in something, if you have evidence it works, do not let other people's doubts stop you. Second, success takes time. Larry and Sergey did not become billionaires overnight. They spent years in a garage, eating ramen, maxing out credit cards, facing rejection after rejection. They kept going when it would have been easier to quit. That persistence is what separates people who succeed from people who almost succeed. Third, timing matters, but so does preparation. Google launched at the right time, just as the internet was exploding, but they were only able to take advantage of that moment because they had spent years building the technology, perfecting the algorithm, and creating something truly better than what existed. Luck favors the prepared. And finally, think big. Larry and Sergey were not trying to build a small business. They were trying to organize all the world's information. That massive vision attracted talent, investors, and users. If they had aimed smaller, they would have achieved smaller results. Instead, they aimed for the impossible and actually got there. If you are working on something right now and people are telling you it will not work, remember this story. Remember that two Stanford students were told their search engine was not worth $1 million, and then they built it into a $4 trillion empire. If you are facing rejection, remember this story. Remember that Yahoo laughed them out of the room, and then came crawling back 2 years later with billions of dollars, only to be rejected themselves. If you are thinking about giving up, remember this story. Remember that Larry and Sergey had every reason to quit in 1998. They were broke, they were exhausted, the biggest company in their industry told them no, but they kept going. Just a little bit longer, just one more day. And that made all the difference. Your story is not over, your setbacks are not the end. They are just the middle. The best part? The part where you prove everyone wrong? That part is still ahead of you. The difference between Larry and Sergey and the thousands of other Stanford students who had good ideas was simple. They refused to quit. When everyone told them to stop, they kept going. When the money ran out, they found a way. When the biggest company in their industry said no, they said we will do it ourselves. That refusal to accept defeat is what built Google, not just the technology, not just the algorithm, The sheer stubbornness to keep going when every logical reason said to stop. That is what separates legends from everyone else. And here is the thing, you have that same choice right now. Whatever you are working on, whatever dream you are chasing, whatever goal you have set for yourself, you can choose to keep going or you can choose to quit. Most people quit. Most people let rejection define them. Most people let other people's opinions become their reality. But you do not have to be most people. If this story inspired you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it is a friend who is thinking about quitting. Maybe it is a family member who is facing rejection. Maybe it is yourself 6 months from now, when things get hard and you need a reminder to keep going. These stories matter. They remind us that success is possible, that persistence pays off, that the people who laugh at you today might be the same people asking how you did it tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Keep going, keep building, keep believing, and never, ever quit.